Cameron, Louisiana is a small fishing village on the Gulf Coast. People here care for each other, and for generations have survived fishing and living in harmony with the wetlands and marshes that line the Gulf Coast. Powerful hurricanes and land loss have driven much of the population away, and those that remain suffer high rates of poverty and chronic illnesses like cancer. Now the fossil fuel industry is looking to cash in on this struggling community. The Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, or FERC, just approved permits for Commonwealth LNG, a proposed methane export terminal in Cameron. FERC and other agencies are still considering permits for CP2 LNG, another proposed methane export terminal just a mile up the coast. Located between Commonwealth and CP2 sites is the Calcasieu Pass LNG, a massive facility that is already exporting methane, with a climate impact equal to 14 million gas cars. One of these facilities is bad for Cameron, but 3 methane export terminals built within a 1.5-mile radius would be devastating for the whole region. Right now, we have 2 opportunities to tell regulators to stop Commonwealth LNG and CP2 and to protect the families they would harm. Commonwealth and CP2 still need coastal use permits from the Louisiana Department of Natural Resources. We want to flood the agency with letters telling them that the environmental and human cost of more methane export terminals is too high. Even though FERC approved Commonwealth, we can still stop it, but it takes all of us speaking out. Please tell the people at these government agencies why this issue matters to you. Your unique voice matters. Write a personal message and speak up today. We have to protect the Gulf Coast and the fishing villages like Cameron.
Hello, welcome. How's everybody doing? We're so glad you joined us this morning. It is rainy and ugly, and schools have been delayed here in Washington, D.C., but we're here live from the Niskanen Center, right next door to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, because just like last month, we're here every month, making sure that frontline voices are heard and respected when we're talking about permits, when we're talking about approving dirty things that we don't need, and we want to stop that. So today we have some amazing community organizers, activists who are coming all the way from Louisiana. The first one that we have here, and he's going to tell you why they came all the way from Louisiana to Washington, D.C. to make sure that FERC gets a spine. And that is James Hyatt. James Hyatt is an organizer with Louisiana Bucket Brigade. He's also a former oil industry worker, and he knows the true threat of LNG, of liquefied natural gas. So without further ado, we want to make sure that we're bringing James to the set because he wants you to know why gas prices are too daggone high. Go ahead, James.
Yeah. All right. Good morning. I'm James Hyatt. I live in southwest Louisiana. If you're not familiar with the state, Louisiana looks like a boot, and New Orleans is the toe of the boot. Southwest Louisiana is the heel of the boot. And we're here today to come to this FERC meeting and to stand up and say enough is enough. The truth of the matter is we have 3 of these gas export terminals already existing on the coast of Louisiana. The newest one is built right on the mouth of the river, of the Calcasieu River, directly on the coast, a coast that is undergoing coastal erosion for the entirety of my life and is now, susceptible to sea level rise. These 3 terminals that are already existing are responsible for exporting over 50% of the natural gas that leaves this country. And because of that, we're sending so much of this gas overseas. Every single American is paying more money for the gas prices. So I invite you right now, if you write this down, finish watching this live stream, but you can go to stophighgasprices.com. That's easy to remember. You can see the plight of the people in southwest Louisiana. The thing is, these export terminals are not just bad for your economy. It's not just bad for your pocketbook and every American manufacturer who's having to pay more and more for their inputs to make products, to make fertilizer, to keep this economy growing. The gas and the energy inflation that is caused by exports is also driving up the price of your electricity bill, the manufacturer's electricity bill, and every good that is made in this country, and making it less and less competitive, and allowing other competitors like Asian countries such as China to operate at a huge advantage over American manufacturers. Besides the economic reasons, it's devastating the local economy. Cameron, Louisiana, has been a shrimp and oyster. That's been the main driving economy for generations. And these terminals they want to put right on the coast. There's one there now, and they want to put 4 more directly on the coast. Just last month, FERC approved Commonwealth LNG, which is absolutely one of the most ridiculous places to place an LNG facility. If we think about nuclear power plants. We take into consideration the location of where they're placed and what could happen if something went wrong. You would never place a nuclear reactor somewhere on the coast along a highly susceptible to hurricanes and tropical storms. But here we are putting these LNG facilities directly on the coast in the line of fire of these hurricanes. And it doesn't, in Hurricane Laura, which Southwest Louisiana suffered through in 2020, immediately after that storm, we saw a chlorine plant in Lake Charles catch fire and stay on fire for 3 days. So when we hear industry say, oh, this is safe, this is something that, you don't have to worry about explosions or huge fires because it's safe, because it hasn't happened yet, well, we can just look to June, to what happened in Freeport in Texas. Freeport LNG caught on fire on June 8th, and that explosion and fire could have been much more devastating. It should have been a warning for all of us that we should not be building these things directly next to where people live. Cameron Parish does not have industrial and residential zoning. And so the police jury, that's the parish council in Cameron Parish, has approved these facilities that are literally next door to people. Why are we doing this? On what planet does it make sense to continue down this path that is just absolutely devastating for the coast and also exacerbating the greenhouse gas that caused climate change? Southwest Louisiana was, in 2020, we not only had Hurricane Laura, 6 weeks later, we had Hurricane Delta. About 3 months later, in February, we had a winter storm Uri that froze everything. In a random Monday in May, it flooded. The mayor called it a 1,000-year flood. And the places that they're wanting to place these LNG facilities, we have 3 now. There's over 8 more that are being proposed, already permitted, and those being proposed along the Calcasieu River. And we can't afford anymore. The climate cannot afford anymore. But more importantly, American manufacturing and American citizens cannot afford to be paying to subsidize basically these big gas companies, and whose only interest is profit. One of the companies that is really trying to wreak havoc in Louisiana is Venture Global. They're the ones who operate Calcasieu Pass. They're the ones who are seeking permits for CP2, the terminal that's directly next to Calcasieu Pass, is directly next to residents. And they also have 2 more facilities in southeast Louisiana, Plaquemines LNG that's under construction now. So we have all of these bad actors who aren't good neighbors, who are not good in the parish where they live. They're affecting people's livelihoods. They're affecting people's air and water quality. How much more do we need? We're already seeing the effects of what happens when you have 7 of these export terminals. When there's plans to put one in Chester, Pennsylvania, and in New Jersey, for all the way from Brownsville, Texas, to Port St. Joe in Florida. We don't need any more of these. It's not for Americans. These export terminals are exactly that. They take fracked gas from these basins like Permian Basin, Haynesville, Marcellus Shale. All of these places have to be fracked and then piped to these export terminals. It's very energy intensive, and it releases methane from the wellhead into the end user. It is devastating for the climate. It's not green. It's not clean. You can see these flares that they have at Calcasieu Pass when they first started up in January until in the middle of May, they flared
huge flames with black smoke for nearly continuously for 4 months. It's the question is, how clean and how green is this? It's not any of those. We on the end of these huge flames, these flares, black smoke was being emitted. That just means that the hydrocarbons aren't being fully consumed. That the people in this area that did not have a flare before January are now being susceptible to all these carcinogens, as formaldehyde, benzene, all of these VOCs, volatile organic compounds, are being emitted that wasn't being emitted in Cameron before this thing was built. And then this is just one on the Calcasieu River, right at the mouth, and they want to put 4 more. I think anybody who understands that we all have arrived here on the backs of so many of our ancestors. None of us have made it to this point today without thousands and thousands of ancestors. And it's not lost on me that the choices that we make today really matter in a way that they, may not have mattered so much in the past. We really cannot afford to continue down this path if we want to have a livable planet for generations to come, and if we want to, have a planet where the nurseries of all of these oysters and these shrimp and these fish that Louisiana is called the sportsman's paradise. But more and more, I think it should be called oil and gas paradise, because we bend over backwards for oil and gas for this industry. I drive a car that runs on gas. Okay, I'm not saying we shut these things down. I'm saying we don't need any more. I mean, enough is enough. You're devastating what already is, and you're jeopardizing the future of a planet for our children to be able to have and enjoy the things that we've been able to have. No other time can I think that we've been at a precipice where we can make a choice, and it's not a hard choice to make. We have the ability to switch into at least begin down a path that is sustainable and renewable, and that's what FERC should be doing. We need a renewable and a sustainable FERC, not a continuation of what's been going on. We also need FERC to require these companies to tell the truth. Where is the duty of candor for these companies who say that there's no resident living within 1.6 miles, as we've seen in some of these dockets? 1.6 miles is, well, I'm looking at Travis, who I know lives well within half a mile of this facility that they're proposed. We also see other facilities like Commonwealth that say that, the drainage is this much. Well, it's not accurate. Who is accountable to these facilities? You want to ram through permitting. You want to expedite permitting reform. People don't even know these facilities are coming. The public comment period is so short that there's not enough time for people to even understand what's being proposed, much less be informed and educated to make a statement that we don't need these things. And you want to do away with that? I mean, this is the America where we the people, where we don't just allow corporations to come in and take over and do whatever they feel like doing. We're not going to take it anymore. The livelihood of South Louisiana depends on what we do today, and so we're imploring FERC to we're imploring FERC to finally, not just say good words, not just say, we care about environmental justice, but to actually say no. We don't. You're not mandated to rubber stamp every permit that comes across your desk. Commonwealth is one of the most ridiculous proposals there is, and to just say, we don't. It's in the public interest. The public interest determination. If it's the Department of Energy that makes that, or if it's FERC, it's not in the national interest. It's not in the public interest to continue building more and more of these gas export terminals that actually harm Americans and American families. I can go on, and perhaps I will in a minute, but I really love you to hear from Travis, who is an indigenous shrimper, originally from Ile de Jean Charles in southeast Louisiana. I've been living in Cameron for the last 6 or 7 years, and I'd love for him to come speak about what it's like to live directly next to one of these roaring dragons. Thanks, Travis.
Wow, James, thank you for that marvelous introduction. Okay, I'm actually a native of Ile Jean Charles, that is a little island 60 miles south of Houma, where I grew up fishing. I moved to Cameron about 7 years back where I started fishing there. I was fishing there before, and we went back home, my wife and I, to the island, and there was nothing left there. I mean, they absolutely, you don't get ahead if you keep losing. The water keeps coming up, and we keep losing and losing and losing. So we decided to move to Cameron where we could also fish, and it was a beautiful place, a beautiful place. And then LNG came, Venture Global came, and they sat their foot in the sand and just pushed everybody out of their way. What they're doing now is absolutely ridiculous. Their permits are absolutely ridiculous. I mean, they permit them and permit them to do absolutely whatever they want with no consequences. They have no remorse. They've been targeting the elderly, actually, going over there and scaring them, you know. In the end, Louisiana's economy was built on the fishing industry. Maybe they forgot that. You know, it was built by the blood, sweat, and tears of our forefathers, not LNG. And living there is an absolute nightmare. I mean, it flares constantly. It's noisy. Now they set to build another one, probably, I guess, about 350, 400 foot from my front door, and they're not mandated to buy people out. What they've been saying is we can build around you. They actually threatened one of the elderly last night. He called me and said that they're threatening with lawyers now. They told him that if he fights them, that he probably won't get anything. And I mean, not to mention building, you know, really, you're going to build around me? How ridiculous is that? These are the lands that have sustained families like mine for years, for generations. And it was built by the fishing industry. If you look at the format of the proposed sites, it's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, it will destroy fishing, period. I mean, how do you destroy an entire town and then have the goal to go and destroy the fishing along with it? And then that's along the entire coast as well. I mean, they're building them in Plaquemines. They're building them far east where I'm from. In the end, if they keep going the route they're going, they will destroy the entire fishing industry. I mean, there will be no shrimp and no fishing. They don't stop with just one. They started with one, and now they have, 7? I mean, wow, guys, really. I'm stuck.
Yeah, let's talk about the drainage and.
Oh, wow, yeah. They have actually built on top of the drainage, and they didn't learn anything by it. They wonder why people's yard stays flooded, and yet they set to build on top of one again. I mean, CP2 is absolutely ridiculous. The permits are ridiculous, and there's places where they downright lie. I mean, 1.6, I'll be probably about 350, 400 foot away. It's a nightmare, only a nightmare that when you wake up, it's still there. I don't see them pulling out the one that's built already. But if they build more, it will be the end. It will destroy everything. And the people in Cameron and the fishermen that actually support me, the Sierra Club, the shrimpers, the Louisiana Shrimpers Association, what they set to do was divide the community as well as the shrimpers. But they have, in fact, united us. We're more united than we've ever been, and we're getting stronger by the day. They came to Cameron, and they knocked on my door. Now I'm in D.C., and I'm banging on theirs. I can go on and on and on all day, but in the end, if we keep going the route we're going, I mean, they will destroy an industry for another industry, and they will run over people. They have no remorse. They took a boat launch where the fishermen could actually launch 3 boats at one time and replaced it with another one that we can't even use. I mean, it's about as wide as the boat. And then have the nerve to tell us that we have to go to the other side to launch. boats are parking just where they fit in at this point. They're parking where they fit in because they have no other choice. They have nowhere else to launch their boats. I mean, there won't be a fishing industry left. That would be there won't be any place to park the boats. The ships are absolutely ridiculous. These are cargo ships they're the biggest ships we've ever seen down there, and they park there 2 at a time. And when they pass, I mean, it sucks the water out, it pushes them in. You see the wave way before you hear it. We will stand strong. The people of Cameron will stand strong. The fishermen will unite. And that's about all I got.
Thank you, Travis. And we know that you have more than that. And we're ready to see what's going to happen, especially because FERC is continuing to approve these dirty LNG facilities. And yes, as James mentioned, we do need energy. We're not saying we don't, but at the expense of people is not fair. The price of gas is too daggone high. Now, tell me again, what is that website that we're supposed to follow? StopHighGasPrices.com. Is the gas too high? What's it look like in your area? Let's tell us about what's going on in the Gulf. StopHighGasPrices.com. Defend Southwest Louisiana. Thank you to the Louisiana Bucket Brigade for bringing this to attention. Now, mind you, we tried to set up some meetings, but FERC is having their holiday party, so they're getting their groove on, and they're eating good, but we're right here next door holding them accountable. If you're in town, check us out. Follow us on Livestream. The meeting has been delayed until 11 because of the weather, but we'll be outside. We're going to have a big old sign. You see this sign behind us? We're going to be outside, and we're going to make sure that people know that we don't want them to take the bait. It is too late to keep playing with our environment. Remember, #Frontlines to FERC. Follow us as we're continuing to bring frontline voices to the people who are making these decisions. Frontlines to FERC. #Frontlines to FERC. StopHighGasPrices.com. Louisiana Bucket Brigade. Thank you to our partners, Niskanen Center, for hosting us, and also to the Sierra Club for their support throughout this whole process. So remember, StopHighGasPrices.com. Frontlines to FERC. Thank y'all. Continue building.
Cameron, Louisiana is a small fishing village on the Gulf Coast. People here care for each other, and for generations have survived fishing and living in harmony with the wetlands and marshes that line the Gulf Coast. Powerful hurricanes and land loss have driven much of the population away, and those that remain suffer high rates of poverty and chronic illnesses like cancer. Now the fossil fuel industry is looking to cash in on this struggling community. The Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, or FERC, just approved permits for Commonwealth LNG, a proposed methane export terminal in Cameron. FERC and other agencies are still considering permits for CP2 LNG, another proposed methane export terminal just a mile up the coast. Located between Commonwealth and CP2 sites is the Calcasieu Pass LNG, a massive facility that is already exporting methane, with a climate impact equal to 14 million gas cars. One of these facilities is bad for Cameron, but 3 methane export terminals built within a 1.5-mile radius would be devastating for the whole region. Right now, we have 2 opportunities to tell regulators to stop Commonwealth LNG and CP2, and to protect the families they would harm. Commonwealth and CP2 still need coastal use permits from the Louisiana Department of Natural Resources. We want to flood the agency with letters telling them that the environmental and human cost of more methane export terminals is too high. Even though FERC approved Commonwealth, we can still stop it, but it takes all of us speaking out. Please tell the people at these government agencies why this issue matters to you. Your unique voice matters. Write a personal message and speak up today. We have to protect the Gulf Coast and the fishing villages like Cameron.
All right, good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to Cameron Parish. I'm James Hyatt, the Southwest Louisiana Coordinator for the Louisiana Bucket Brigade. I'm joined here by Mr. John Allaire, a retired environmental engineer. We're here on his property, right here at about 400 yards from the Gulf of Mexico in Cameron Parish. Behind us, you can see Venture Global's Calcasieu Pass LNG export terminal, gas export terminal. I apologize if it's a little windy. It's windy out here. If you hear some ducks, it's because literally 10 yards away is a large pond with a lot of wildlife. So we want to thank you this morning for joining us as we're going to talk about gas export terminals and what that means for us on the coast and also in America. If you would, John, just tell us a little bit about yourself and how long you've been here.
My name is John Allaire. I bought these two sections of property back in 1998. I've been making minor improvements in the area, trying not to mess up the wildlife. But when I bought the property, the LNG facility wasn't here. That was recently completed in January, or halfway completed in January of 2022. I'm with the oil and gas industry. I was with a major oil and gas company for 30 years and then did another 10 years of environmental consulting for different refineries. But my 30 years, it began now in 1980. I was in refining for 10 years and then in exploration, production, and drilling for another 20 years. The majority of that time I was employed as an environmental engineer. And one of the things that I did over that 30 years, 10 years in refining and then exploration, production, and drilling, was produce oil and gas for domestic consumption here in the U.S., for U.S. industries and the U.S. consumers.
Thank you, John. So you've lived in this property since the late 90s, is that correct?
98. I've been out here 24 years.
And just to speak a little bit about what's happened since 2005, hurricane season is coming upon us quickly here in June. And since 2005, if you can speak to your experience.
We've had 4 major hurricanes since 2005. First there was Rita, 2005. Then there was Ike in 2008. And then we had Laura in 2020. And then we had Delta shortly after that, also in 2020. So 4 major hurricanes. Where we're standing right now on a chenier in Cameron Parish. During Hurricane Rita, the water would have been 16 to 20 feet deep here with some waves on top of it.
Wow.
And Ike, the water would have been about 8 or 9 feet here. Laura, the water levels would have been about 6 feet here. And Delta, the water levels would have been 5 foot here.
So basically, this area has been affected greatly by climate change, global warming, hurricanes, the impacts of the more frequent and more severe storms. Can you speak a little bit about the coast? When you moved here in the late 90s, how your coastline has been affected over this past 20-something years?
I have my sections front on the Gulf of Mexico. There's about 3,200 feet of frontage. When I first bought the property in 98 and up until the major hurricanes occurred, we had solid rows of 3-4 foot diameter trees, mostly hackberry and some live oaks along the coast and salt cedars. And we have lost 50 plus yards of that frontage, and now we're just down to Shell Beach out in the front there as the sand is all eroded and headed down the coast to the west, southwest.
Wow, so that's so you've lost 50 yards of the beach already just by coastal erosion.
Absolutely.
And then the storms are just continually impacting. Can you speak a little bit about what the wetlands does to help the impacts felt further inland from hurricanes?
Yep, I can. What we're doing is if you look behind us, you'll see this tree line in an upper elevation. That's an old chenier, what they call a chenier in an oak plain that was basically sea level was at this level for 10,000 years, 8,000 years, and built sand dunes here. Sea level was static for that 10,000 year period. And topsoil developed over the dunes. Different vegetation grew. The trees that I just described grew along the tops of these cheniers, providing habitat for the birds and mammals that come through. The neotropicals come through in the spring, and we're in that period right now. And then out to our south here was what I call a chenier pond. And then there's another chenier where sea level stood out there for 5,000 years. It's a little bit not as high as this chenier, but this chenier is about 6.5, 7 feet above sea level. That one down there is about 4.5. And then there is another pond that parallels the coast. And then there was another chenier that I described earlier with the large trees on it that was around along the frontage. And what these areas and ponds do, the cheniers provide wetlands for the migrating waterfowl that come down every winter. This pond out in front of me is about a 35-acre pond on this side of my property, and then it extends down for another 70 acres or so to the east toward where Commonwealth wants to put their project.
Good afternoon. I'm a resident here, also a commercial fisherman here. Everybody here talks about the positivity of this plant. I mean, you got CP2, you got G2, you got Commonwealth, you got Venture Global. Nobody talks about the impact that it'll have on the fishing. Nobody. We live probably around 300-400 feet away from this plant, Venture Global. And their people are hateful. They come over there, they say they're gonna build around us. They talk to our elderly like they're not. They told one man that it would cost more to tear down the house he built with his own 2 hands than what it's worth. We're not looking for millions of dollars. We want to buy out. And they can stop being rude like this. I mean, really? You got 300-400 feet you're going to build around me? There's no sense in that. I mean, you got G2 going all the way through Oyster Bayou. Fishing's over with here. It's time to wake up and see that. Fishermen will not coexist with this. They won't. It'll be one or the other, and we all know who it's going to be. We want to buy out and we want to leave. Cameron is not what it was when we moved here. Y'all recognize this shirt? This is the Cameron fleet. They're starting to speak up. They're starting to stand up for themselves. So we don't deserve this at all.